Hi, good morning. This is Damon Scott, Marketing Director here at PVBS, and I want to thank everyone for joining us on our introduction to Microsoft Dynamics NAV for Government Contractors. Today we will be providing an overview of the Microsoft Dynamics NAV for Government Contractors, which is a fully integrated business management solution. Today's presentation will include a quick look at the executive dashboard. We'll get into some of the fully integrated web time and expense system, the project setup, which also includes billing setup and managing funding, and hopefully we'll have time to get into the invoicing and invoice formats as well as managing indirect rates. A little bit of housekeeping for today. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to our PVBS YouTube account, which is PVBS Dynamics NAV, later today. If you have any questions, you can post them in the question section and we will try to get to those as we go along. If we cannot get to your question, we will contact you separately. Also, later today, you should receive an email invitation to take a post-webinar survey. We really appreciate any feedback that you can help us make this a better learning tool for everyone. So please take a few minutes and answer some questions for us. We do appreciate that. Okay, today's agenda for today's webinar includes a brief introduction about PVBS. Then we're going to jump right into the demonstration of the product. Again, we're able to answer questions as we go along, so please post those, and we will try to get to those. We'll try to save a little time at the end, too, to get the questions as well. So a little bit about PVBS. We are a top-tier Microsoft Business Solutions partner, serving only the government contracting market. Our headquarters are just outside Washington, D.C. in Reston, Virginia. It gives us a unique access and insight in the GovCon community. As an experienced leader with over 14 years of success in the government contracting market and an intelligent innovator with Microsoft systems, PVBS is a direct resource to both government contractors and the government Microsoft communities. So Microsoft Dynamics NAV, which we're going to cover today, is a rich, robust accounting solution compliant with federal rules and regulations, and it provides complete integration with ease of PVBS is driven to develop excellence in providing the most comprehensive solution to our customers and our partnership channels. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Paul Skrupski, who is one of the founding members here at PVBS. Paul?
All right. Well, thanks, Damon, and thanks for everybody that joined us on the call today. We're excited to give you a little overview of Microsoft Dynamics NAV for government contractors. So I've been working with this product in particular now for, I guess, 17 years, and I've been working with government contractors for about the same period of time. And Damon mentioned a little bit about our business. I want to talk a little bit about Dynamics NAV, and this slide changes so fast that you almost need a full-time person to keep it updated. But Microsoft now has almost 130,000 companies that use Microsoft Dynamics NAV as their base accounting business software platform. There's over 2 million licensed users using it, so it's the most widely used mid-market business software from an accounting finance perspective in the world. So I'm excited that I've been a part of it for almost the last 20 years and excited to be a really close partner with Microsoft. So in terms of how Microsoft delivers these solutions to the marketplace, they're done through a partner channel. So Dynamics can meet the needs of a lot of different industries. Our organization exclusively focuses on the government contracting market. So our clients are serving, pretty much all the agencies out there, so both defense, civilian, and, we have clients that do some not-for-profit work with the federal government. And the type of services that they provide range from your typical professional services arena to also manufacturing or distribution of products to the federal government, because companies provide a wide range of products and services to the government, and the companies that we service are those businesses that have some amount of business with the federal government. So this is a little bit about the roadmap, and I'm going to go through to the NAV 2016 slide, because this is what we're going to focus on today. But one of the things that's happened in the last 3 weeks is that Microsoft just released NAV 2017. So I'm going to talk about 2016 and show 2016 today, but I want to mention a couple things about 2017 as we go through this. So with NAV 2016, Microsoft made some significant improvements and innovation. So the first is how it works with Office 365, and we've heard from the community that Office 365 has had significant uptake by the business community, and in fact, we're also users of Office 365. And the two big areas where this has an impact for our clients is, one, making sure that it works seamlessly with Office 365, and number two, there's a component in Office 365 called Power BI, and NAV works with Power BI. The security is integrated, and also that data model, and Microsoft's got a standard data model for NAV working with Office 365. The second thing is, this says Windows, but really it should, I think, say operating systems, because Dynamics NAV works with more than just Microsoft Windows. It works with the Apple products for both the tablet and the phone side. Same thing with the Android platform, so tablet and phone on the Android side. And when it relates to web, whether you're using Mozilla or you're using Firefox, it works with those different kind of browsers. So in terms of accessing the system, really now more than ever, from any type of device pretty much, from any type of platform on the tablet, phone, or website, you can get to Microsoft Dynamics. And I think that is the new world that Microsoft lives in, trying to give access to people through these many different devices. So now I'm going to get into the presentation. Oh, actually, one last thing when I go back to this is, with NAV 2017, I'm going to open up a little video, just a short portion of it, to show you what was the big change in NAV 2017, which was Power BI, which is the dashboard tool within Office 365. Microsoft has actually embedded Power BI into Dynamics NAV, and I'll show you a little bit about what that means. All right, so let me go ahead and get into the presentation.
While you're doing that, let's go ahead and do a quick poll.
Okay, all right, great.
We have a lot of folks online. We've talked about the Microsoft system. We've talked about some other things as well. Just curious what the accounting systems the companies out there are currently using right now. A lot of people know what's going on with Deltek. We have a lot of folks from Deltek that are coming to these webinars. Folks coming from QuickBooks, upgrading into a higher level component as well. And
so we'll give you about another 20 or 30 seconds here. Right now it looks like 50% of the folks are on Deltek today that are on today's call, with a good chunk on, okay, we're actually up to 60% now. So we've got 25% that are on CostPoint, 30%, now up to 40% on GCS Premier. We got about a little under 20% on QuickBooks, and a little over 12% on other. And let's go ahead and we'll close the poll out. So it looks like about almost 70% of the folks on today's call are using Deltek, either GCS Premier or CostPoint, with a mix between the other three down below. So it looks like a lot of Deltek folks on the phone. So we'll talk a little bit about this system and in some ways how it relates to Deltek. And we've migrated probably over 100 companies now off of either Deltek CostPoint or Deltek GCS Premier. So we've got a lot of experience and understand the Deltek products in detail. So, and I apologize for, I'm just coming off a cold, so if I sound a little bit nasally, I apologize. But what I want to do is I want to spend the first few minutes and kind of get you introduced to the product. So talk a little bit about the interface and how it works. And then I'll go through a little bit of a day in the life of a typical government contractor in terms of how they use the system for day-to-day use. So right now I'm logged into the system. Microsoft has what they call a role-tailored client and also role-based security. So the idea is based on your role, you'd have a home page laid out a certain way with security that controls what you can see and do in the system. So it really allows you to lock things down so people only get into areas that are relevant to their specific role. So as an accounting manager, things that I would have an interest in are open invoices that need to get created, or expense reports to be processed, or timesheet corrections. Each one of these stacks allows me to drill into it to see the detail behind it. So if I drill into the expense reports, it shows me the list of expense reports that were submitted and approved, but AP hasn't processed it yet. So I can see who created the expense report, the period that they created it for. I could pull up any type of approval, so who approved the invoice, or I'm sorry, the expense report, and when they approved it. I could see attachments, so those would be the receipts related to it, or I could also print the expense report. So if I wanted to print a hard copy and I needed to give this to somebody, I could actually print that document, and you can see the electronic signatures and when these elements were signed as part of that expense reporting process. And invoices are just another, or expense reports are just another report. So I could export this thing to Excel, PDF, or Word if needed. From my home page, I can also look at some different CAN dashboards. So I mentioned the Power BI concept, and with Power BI, you can create your own dashboards, with measures and charts that are relevant to your business. Microsoft also created some different standard charts that you can make available via somebody's home page. Integration with Outlook, so I can see my Outlook components as part of my home page if needed. And then over to the right, it's all of the elements that are specific to things related to my role. So everything from my notifications, which would be, it's almost like instant messaging in the system. Someone can send me a note and link it to a record. My job queue, these are reports that I've scheduled. So in my demo system, I can schedule a report. So maybe the job status report, I can have this report scheduled and tell the system what format do I want to output it in. So whether it's PDF, Word, Excel, print it to a printer, or just process it. And then I can tell the system how often. It could be a one-time thing, or maybe it's a recurring report. So every Monday, send me this report and send it to me in Excel. And I can have that scheduled for me. The top right-hand corner, it says my job. So in my demo system, I've got probably 50 or 60 different jobs. But on my home page, I can have a list of 4 or 5 that are maybe important to me. And by just double-clicking it, I can actually launch that job record to see the detail behind it. Later on in the presentation, I'm going to show you how jobs are set up. But while I'm here, I want to talk a little bit about the status box, which is showing me information about this particular job. So the contract value, funded value, revenue data, etc. Anytime you see a number with a line underneath of it, means you can drill into it. So I can drill into any of these measures to see the detail behind it. So for this job, the AR balance is currently $8,000, $8,000 plus. I can drill into that number, and it shows me all the outstanding AR entries related to this particular job. So you can see the invoice that created the AR. If it's overdue, the due date gets highlighted in red. I can go back to the source document. So in this case, maybe I call up the customer and say, hey, Mr. Customer, we've got an invoice that we sent you back in 2013 for $3,000. Why haven't you paid me yet? And maybe the customer says, you know what? I never received that invoice. Can you send it over to me? Not a problem. I can go ahead and pull that up, and let's hit the email button. And, okay, let me, what's your email address? I'll send it to you right now. Or maybe they say, can you print me another hard copy of that invoice and send it over to me, maybe by fax, or maybe they want it mailed, FedEx to them. I could also pull up that invoice, reprint it in any of the formats, and we can go ahead and we'll just print this off and send it to you. So as a company, I can always get back to those source documents, reprint them, and send them off. But I can also analyze transactions right from here. So for instance, this entry right here, this AR entry for $1,600, it shows that the remaining amount is only $672. So maybe, we credited the customer, or maybe they did a partial payment, and I didn't see that money. Well, if I drill into it, I would see that the original invoice was for $1,672. There was a $1,000 cash receipt that was applied to it, and let's see what that money there, let's see what happened to it. So if I hit navigate, it shows me that, yeah, we actually did take that. We put it against our bank account. Let me see that bank account entry. Well, it doesn't show that that check ever cleared. So maybe we lost the check. So I could go ahead and I could come in and unapply that entry and just say that, well, can you cancel that check and resubmit it to us? So it makes it easy for users to find answers to their questions and really analyze data in a very fluid method. Other things that you see from the home page is you can have a default list of items, but from the department menu you can see all the different elements of the system you can get into today. So everything from integrated financial management, which is going to include the GL, cash flow management, receivables, payables, and fixed assets, sales order processing, purchase order management. For anyone that has any products, there's also warehousing, manufacturing, product distribution. But we're going to focus today on project accounting, which is all the project side of the business. There's some resource planning, HR and payroll integrated, and then for clients that want to outsource those components or they use a service, we also integrate with some of the standard HR payroll products that are out there. So the second thing we're going to get into today is we're going to get into timesheets. So this is a place that all employees can go to enter their time, enter expenses. They had purchase requisitions, they can enter purchase requisitions, then approval of those documents. So we'll go through that whole process to do that. As I mentioned before, with NAV 2016, Microsoft released the phone client. So for folks that want to enter time and expenses via a phone app, now there's also an app for entering those data elements there for you. So let me talk a little bit about reporting. So the system has probably 300 plus different standard reports. So whether it's job status, job revenue summary, unbilled analysis reports, you can run any of the reports right from here. You can also, like I mentioned, print them or export them to a format or schedule those reports. You can create your own particular reports if needed. And then in addition to reporting inside the system, we're going to talk a little bit about Power BI and how you can leverage Power BI. And then I was actually just in a meeting and one of the prospects was talking about we like to do some things in Excel. How can the system surface data via Excel? And there is the ability to present data from Excel inside of, in this case, a spreadsheet. So we've got some standard views that we offer. So let me go through and we'll talk about some of these project type views. So a burn rate report, income statement by job, labor analysis, cost analysis. So we'll start with the burn report. So as a user, you can set some filters. So I can choose one or multiple jobs and a list of tasks and the period that I want to see it for. And it's going to show me details about my top line revenue, all of my operating expenses, including indirect costs, net income or loss, and also what was spent. So if I select one of the cells, you can see there's no data keyed in here. It's just looking at the cube called jobs at a measure called total spent, filtered by these slicers or filters. So if I selected different projects, I would get a different picture of the puzzle. And then in the top right, it's showing me the trend of my funding being used. Then based on the average funding used over the last 3 months, it calculates the projected remaining funding over the number of months. So it's saying we've got 9.5 months if we continue at that same pace. So these are some canned views that we created that clients can leverage. So project spend, a cost detail report, so it's showing me my elements of cost trended over time. Then my labor analysis is just showing me hours trended over time. So how many hours people are charging month over month against either one or multiple projects. And I can see the people and that monthly trend over to the left. There's a set of financial views that would provide everything from a business overview, so showing me a trend of my revenue, profit, and AR, a balance sheet with my key metrics over to the right, income statement, cash flow, and then a couple different indirect rate trend views. So this one is showing me a trend of my rates month over month, actual versus provisional, and giving me the details of that calculation of what was in my pool and what was in my base related to actual indirect rate calculations. And then the thing that's really nice is that if you wanted to create some type of view that's not standard, one of the things that you can do is you can just connect to the data cube. So if I hit data connections, we've got a cube for jobs, a cube for general ledger, and a cube for purchasing, and also for products. But you can see the different measures that are part of that standard cube. So everything from budgeted measures to your job ledger is your historical, job cost measures. So everything from AR in different calculated buckets. So 30, 60, 90 on the AR side, billings data, hours data. So anything you want to analyze, I can just drag and drop it in. So I'm looking at billings, hours. Maybe I want to see my labor cost. We'll choose that as a measure. If I want to look at my unposted hours, these are timesheet hours. So in one place, I'm seeing both timesheet data and accounting data. So we're going to look at unposted hours. Let's also look at something called unposted spent. So these are some measures that we want to look at. And then to the left, the rows would be how do I want to group it. So if I wanted to group this thing, and let's go ahead and look at some of the job-related groupings. So if I want to group it by contract, I can just grab my contract and drop it in there. So now in my demo system, here's my different contracts and the breakout of those measures. Underneath the contract, maybe you've got a vehicle that is across agencies or across clients. I can grab my client and say, okay, I've got my contract called test, and I've got 3 different customers that use that vehicle. I can see Department of State, Fort Belvoir, and USPTO. And then you see this little plus sign. It means underneath of that customer, I can see more. So in this case, I'm seeing the actual job underneath of it. Or maybe I wanted to see who are the PMs that are managing that particular project. So I could grab that project manager and let's put them as part of the hierarchy. Maybe we take the customer out. So who are the PMs that are managing projects underneath that particular vehicle? So you've got different measures that you can select in terms of how you want to analyze, and you can also drill into this. So if I want to see the Department of State work we're doing, the unposted hours and spent, this is timesheet data. Let's look at more details related to that. So if I want to see what are the LCATs that people are charging to, let's go ahead and select the labor category name, and you can see for that particular client, a lot of our hours on the timesheet side are under project management. So I can actually get to the individual person by selecting the resources related to it. So here are the individual people. Go ahead and grab the resource name, and here's the people that are charging time. So as a user, it allows me to drill in and drill across, to see detail regarding projects or people. And I could totally flip this equation. Instead of showing this stuff, and let's go ahead and back out of some of it. So maybe I don't want to look at it even by contract. I want to look at stuff by person. Maybe you're a labor shop that does a lot of T&M work, and you want to see the people that are working on things and how they're doing. So let's go ahead and we'll go down to resources, and let's just look at this by resource name, and let's take our contract vehicle off. And now it's showing me who are the individual people working across projects. And I'm seeing details about their labor cost, unposted hours, unposted spent. Maybe I want to see, the unburdened cost of people, and, do we have people in the right labor category codes to make money? It looks like we got labor cost in there. So let's look at labor spent, which is for T&M, it's the bill amounts as soon as they're captured. So I can see that for Andrew, let me just do a quick formula, and we'll say whatever we're able to bill for Andrew minus the labor cost on, our gross profit line, you can see that, we're making about $11,000 off that 195 hours that Andrew's working. So I can kind of build some analysis on the fly, and also even use some conditional formatting, to figure out who are our best staff members related to the billing side of things, or gross profit in this case. So this is one way to analyze data. And Damon, let's just see what products people are using to see if it makes sense to show kind of what Power BI is about.
Yeah, I'll just launch a little poll out there. As far as what Microsoft products does your company currently use right now, Paul had mentioned Office 365 is really taken off. A lot of folks are using that these days. Obviously, Outlook, the Mail Exchange. SharePoint is another one that has really kind of been used. I'm sure everyone uses Excel, but we do want to make sure that folks are familiar enough with Excel as we're talking about this. So right now, Paul, looks like 100% on Excel, Outlook. SharePoint, surprisingly, down about 60%. Office 365, about 35%. And there's some other products listed as well.
Okay. All right. Great.
We'll give it another 10 seconds here or so.
All right.
We've got some folks still ringing in. But,
all right. Well,
we're still at 100% on Excel, and
okay.
about 50 on SharePoint, 90 on Outlook, and about 30% on Office 365. So I'm going to close that and let's go back over.
All right. So let me just show you kind of some screenshots of what Power BI looks like and how it's kind of changing the way things work. So Power BI is a web-based dashboard tool. It's part of Office 365. So it allows organizations to create different dashboards. So I could create the standard dashboard, and then I could make it available to people. And the thing that's nice about this, in addition to just a base dashboard, you also have the ability to create things on the fly. So let me just show, I'm going to play this for a second. And what this is showing is, just like when I was showing in the Excel, hold on one second, I just...
Doesn't want to play. Not cooperating today.
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm just, I ran into a little problem with my machine here. So I've just got to give it a minute to just restart here. So actually, why don't we do this, Damon? Why don't we kind of open up maybe for some questions while I'm just restarting this image? And so if we want to just open the polls up for some questions.
Yeah, if you have some questions, if you want to post those real quick, we can jump into those as Paul's taking care of this. Obviously, we're getting some questions in. Paul, one of them as far as implementation timing, how long does it take?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so in terms of for companies looking to roll the system out, really that's a little bit of a tough one for me to start with, because it really depends on the size of the project. So projects can be anywhere from 3 to 4 months to a year long, and part of it depends on the client, in terms of the complexity and the amount of data that they want to move. But what we do is with each project, spend some time to understand the client needs and make sure that we create a timeline that sets them up for success there.
Yeah, I know at this time of year we do get companies that want to sign and then have everything setting up in January. But that's not the case, though. Okay. Do you want to get another question, or? I'm gonna need just a minute to just restart my machine. I got some kind of error on it, so. Okay. If you want to jump into some of those other questions.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and just let me see other questions. If I can just take a peek at your machine here. So there's a question, I guess, in terms of the pricing side of things. So the question is, how is the system licensed, and what is the licensing options? So how the system works from a licensing perspective is that it's either licensed on a perpetual license basis, or it's based on subscription license. So what that means is that a perpetual license means you can buy the software and basically you own it and you pay annual maintenance, or a subscription option is regarding, everything is rolled into that subscription. So you pay monthly or quarterly or annually for that subscription, which is going to get you access to all those future versions, the updates. It includes the maintenance on it and also the hardware on it. So it can be hosted for you, or it can be, if you use the perpetual option, you can host it yourself or have it in a data center by yourself. In terms of the pricing for that, again, that one's a little bit complicated because of the fact that it's based on a little different than, in this case, we got a lot of Deltek users in here. It's not based on your head count. It's based on the number of concurrent users in the system for you. So that's just a little bit of a difference there. And let me cover one other one because I need just about 2 minutes. And there's a question about data migration and how is data migrated in the system. So with data migration, how it works is that we've got an Excel template that allows us to basically map your new data structure compared to the old data structure. So the easiest way to explain this is that really the data itself, once you put it into Excel, if you can get it into Excel for us, at that point we can take and import all of it for you. So once it's put into Excel, we take it from there, and we'll go ahead and do that setup, or the system will, when we import it, create all the setups and all of the historical data. We've moved for some clients multiple years of data. For some clients, they're interested in a faster start, and that's one of the things that impacts that starting period is that for some clients, we just start with beginning balance data. And Damon, I am about 1 minute away, so one last question, then I'm ready to go here. So, and I apologize for the technical delay on this. So if you can just read the last question for me, and then you want to just, so,
yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple questions. I don't know if you want to pick one that might be a little bit quicker to answer than some of the other ones that are a little bit longer.
So this is saying that currently we're using Uninet. People have demoed NAV. They say it's better than Uninet. Specifically, what are they noting as better than Uninet? So with Uninet, I would say that the big difference is that with NAV is it's a full business application from it's more than just timesheets and expense reports. So Uninet has added on financials, I guess, in the last year. But I would say the biggest thing, and I know the folks at Uninet, good people, but I'd say the biggest thing is the maturity of the product related to the project accounting side, everything on the financial management elements of it, from fixed assets through purchasing are the big differentiators. So if you have specifics around that, I would say that is the biggest differentiator. So, thanks for everybody's patience. We're going to go ahead and hop back into the presentation, and it looks like that video that I had kind of crashed my machine. But what happened in the Power BI piece, just to note, is that you can create those dashboards, and with NAV 2017, you can actually take any of the dashboards and make it available inside of NAV. So now the dashboard software can actually interface directly with the accounting system, not only the views, but also the security. All right, so let me go ahead and let's get into some of the project setups, and we'll try to highlight some of these differences when you think about this system compared to some of the ones that folks on the phone are using. So let me go ahead and we'll pull up a T&M project and talk a little bit about the setup of this system, or of this type of project. So you've got your internal job number, description of the job, the client you're doing the work for. So anytime you see this little caret down, it means I'm looking into a list. So I pull from a list of all of my customers and fill in that information. Then you've got your internal project manager, the type of contract, the period of performance. So different fields that you can have filled in. On the posting tab, this would be all the financial measures related to the system. Related to this job. So the department that owns it, revenue recognition, billing formulas. If you had cost type work on any cost type project, you set up what we call the billing pool group, or I should say you choose the billing pool group. So this is related to your indirects and how you recover them. So if you use your corporate rate structure and provisional rates, you can just choose the company pool, or you could have a rate structure that's unique to that job. So you can have different setups that you could select from. The fee percent was the fee that you earn. So on a cost type project, fee amount is fee on hours. When I go to the contract tab, this is regarding data that's contract related. So everything from the contract vehicle the work is being performed under. So this is an example where if you had a GSA contract, you could assign the GSA contract, and the system can store your GSA contract vehicle and everything related to that contract, including the IFF associated with it, and the pricing of that contract vehicle. So if you had your GSA rates, if you want to load them into the system, now anytime you do work that's under that GSA vehicle, you can pull in those GSA bill rates. So that's kind of the setup related to the high level part of the job. So the way to think about it is the contract is at the highest level. Below the contract, you've got jobs, and then below the job, you've got this WBS, which is including different tasks and subtasks. So this is the structure underneath the job. It's set up by you, so you can decide by job the level of depth you're going to capture information. But this is the place where you're going to develop the structure for how you're going to do. There's three key pieces to this. So one is the charging level. So the lowest level is the level I charge at. So in my demo here, I'm charging at level 3. I can fund at any level of the WBS. So if I wanted to set funding at level 2, that would mean that any of these charge codes could use that funding. In my demo example, I put the funding level the same as the charge level, so that means my charge code called labor, that's the only one that can use the $7.8 million of funding. These can map to ACRNs or CLINs where needed. And then also the timesheet and expense report is all fully integrated. So it's all controlled in one place. So this is where I'm telling the system, here is the place that I'm identifying whether it's visible for a timesheet, visible for expense reports, or requisitions, or it could be both or neither from a relationship perspective. What is the membership side of it? So this is telling the system who can see that code. So everything from the individual person and then the period that individual person can see it. So in this case, Carter can see this charge code for all of July in 2015, but maybe the overarching period of performance was from 2015 to 2018. So you can set at the top level everybody that has access, and then beneath that, this membership allows me to have individual people that I can restrict at the person level there. And then you can set hierarchies in terms of approval for time, expenses, or requisition approval, which can all be different. The visibility checkbox, I mentioned that in terms of what type of expense can be seen. And then underneath the detail or underneath the actual amounts for funded value and contract value is modification detail. So this would be the history of all mods. So changes to contract value, funded value. Maybe you change the POC or the POP. You can identify that, and you see all the history of those changes. So if there was a new change to one of those, so if there was a mod to this job, and let's just say we added some additional funding for labor, I could go in and tell the system that we're going to mod that particular level, and let's go ahead and we'll put in mod number 39. And if I put in T, it'll just put in today's date, and let's just say that that change was $300,000. Let me go ahead and try to put 3 million by accident. So 300,000. And now once I say OK to this, you're going to see the overall job is going to get updated. So that just went to 8.4 and 8.3 million. Then when I go back to that work breakdown structure, you can see that now that labor is now over 8 million for that individual task. So I can enter at the detailed level. The system automatically rolls it up for me. Now the second thing is that particular entry, there might be some backup documentation to that. So you see that on this page there's notes, there's also links, and then for folks, I think, Damon, you said about 50% are using SharePoint.
Yeah.
So if you're using SharePoint, one of the things that you can do is you can link documents and drop those into SharePoint. So if I had a document I could take from my home page, so I could just grab a document and drag and drop it against that record, and then what it would do is it would drop it into SharePoint and link it to this document. So as a user, it's an easy way that I can manage those documents, and now anybody that has access to the system and has access to SharePoint can look at those documents related to it. So, you know, whether it's the contract file, it's an email from the CO for that approval, it's an easy way for people to see those documents, and that document link can be put on any page inside the system. So really something that's super valuable to folks that have a lot of document management requirements in any area of the system. The next thing is we talked about setting up that contract vehicle, in this case the GSA vehicle, and bringing the pricing in. So if I set up the pricing on the contract vehicle, it's a way that I can actually take those GSA rates and bring them into this job. So if I'm billing based on GSA, I can go ahead and say OK, and what it would do is it would fill in the bill rates for this job. So in my demo system, you know, here's my bill rates across my different labor category codes. Go back to that. So if I wanted to see my senior consultant labor category code, we'll go ahead and filter to that value on my list. So for job 2025, senior consultant, you know, it escalates from 177 to 249 in 2019. So maybe these are my GSA rates, and one of the things that we did is we gave the customer a discounted senior consultant rate. So I'm going to go ahead and send this off to Excel. So anytime you're in a list or you're in a ledger, if you just hit the Excel button or Control E, you can send that data off to Excel. You know, so now I've got this data off in an Excel sheet, and you can see that it's date time stamped because if I ever wanted to refresh it with new data, I could do that. But if I want to do something in Excel and I want to take this information and let's go ahead and let's just say that maybe we're going to give the client a 2% discount off of this. I can go ahead and identify, you know, what that rate discount we're going to give, and then let's go ahead and we'll put that back into the system. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these old rates, which is my standard GSA rate, and let's put the new rates in. So I can actually take that data from Excel, do that calculation in Excel, and we'll go ahead and paste that back in. So it's a way that as a user, I can do things in Excel and interact with Excel without having to do a lot of manual gyrations. So anytime you're in a list or ledger, you can not only send to Excel, but bring data back in. So that's how I build my resource prices for this job across labor category codes. I can key it right in. I can copy it from the contract vehicle, or if you had a standard price sheet, you could copy it from there. And if I can make changes here in Excel to update that pricing. The resource labor category list, this is where I'm telling the system on this job, what are the default labor category codes for people? So if I look at my senior consultant list, we'll go ahead and filter to that value. So in this, on this project, I've got Carl, Kevin, Carter, and Joe that are senior consultants. And if you remember, that resource price is going to tell me what the bill rate is on this job for these particular folks. You can also set multiple defaults for one person on a job if they work on different tasks under different labor category codes. So really gives you two things. One is setting up those bill rates in advance, that flexibility in terms of setting them up. And I'm doing everything in one place. So everything related to the billing and time entry setups, all in one place, all one database, all fully integrated. The budgeting and forecasting side, so allows me to build out project budgets, doing this either on a monthly basis, quarterly, or annual basis. So I'm able to build out those project budgets to use from an analysis perspective. Also has import-export from Excel. You can set funding limits. You can have budgeted rates. There's also the ability to define alerts. So alerts are ways that you can have a comparison between the spent or billed value compared to the funded or budgeted value, and then send an alert out at a certain percent. Send that out to project managers, task managers on that job, or maybe you just have certain email addresses that these alerts need to go out to. So really an easy way for you to disseminate information. And we also mentioned that scheduling of reports, you can also schedule reports and give people access to those reports from their home page. So that's a little bit about setting up projects. We won't go through all the different project types, but the system's going to support whether it be T&M, cost plus, award fee, fixed fee, incentive fee, firm fixed price projects, or indirect projects. It'll be able to support all those different project types. So once you've set up the project, we talked about defining that work breakdown structure. The next thing you're going to do is go into entering time and expenses. So on the timesheet and expense report side, from a timesheet point of view, you can have different timesheet cycles all within one company, be able to support those different timesheet options. What a user is going to do is a couple things they can do from their timesheet. They can look up their PTO balance. They can also request time off. So as a user, I can request time off. So maybe I need Friday off. I can request that time off, and this would send an email out to my approver to approve the time off request. If they approve it, it would just automatically go on my timesheet. If they reject it, I would get a notification of why they rejected it. As a user, I can set up favorites. So if you remember from earlier, users only see their charge codes that are, one, assigned to them, and two, that are valid in terms of the current period of performance. So either the period of performance needs to be valid, or it needs to be valid for me, because I can restrict it by individual and a period that's less than the total pop. So if you remembered earlier, we had one person that could just see it for the month. So they would just see the charge codes that are available to them. They can set favorites, and now every time they start a new timesheet, it would just drop their favorites in for them. So maybe, this morning I worked 2 hours on Project Kempster, and this afternoon I'm going to take 4 hours off. I need to get a little extra rest. I could put that in there. And then if I needed to put a reason why, I can put a comment, and we'll just say home sick, click OK, save it. And that would be the process I would go through on a daily basis to enter my time. You can see, what are the comments that I've typed in. The system also has controls in place for if I made a change to a previously saved cell. So maybe on Monday I had planned for 6 hours of PTO, but I really just took 4. So when I move off of that, it asks me for the reason for the change. So I could just say that only took half day, and we'll say, completed this. My typing's a little off today too. Completed this task, and then I could also make that same kind of change here, and then we'll just say only took half day. And then I would save it. So those comments are put into 2 different places. You can see that doesn't show up as a comment. It shows up in the audit trail. And when I go to print my timesheet, I can decide, do I want to show audit trail or comments? it's put in two different places because those comments could be internal, where that audit trail is really meant for the government if they do a timesheet audit. And then as a user, I can also process expense reports. So I won't go through the whole expense reporting process. I'm just going to cover it real briefly. So I can decide the period I'm going to travel, a description for travel. So we'll just say travel to a new client. Click Save. That's going to create my header for me. At that point, I could go ahead and travel based on per diem or just add my lines, so individual lines. So I'll just do the per diem travel. So I choose my state that I travel to. I can either type in or choose from the drop-down box. I will click Next, and then I would choose the period I was at that location. So it's just showing me for this trip I was gone the 5th to the 9th, and we'll just say I was there for that one job or that just the one location. We'll charge it to my travel task or travel CLIN. You can see that this project had multiple charge codes, but I'm only seeing the ones that are related to expense reports here. My lodging, my meals, we'll say that was based on per diem. Click Next. It shows me my per diem grid. And then I could just put in the actual amount of my room and what my actual room tax was. Click Finish, and now it's going to create my expense report for me. And then I could add attachments to it if I needed or other lines, save it and submit it as needed. So really an easy way for employees to enter those expenses. The thing that's nice is as I was entering it on the web, it was creating that same expense report inside the accounting system. So you can see that my spelling again was off, but it would show me the attachments and the approval that we talked about earlier. But it builds it for me on the fly. I don't need to worry about anybody rekeying any of those elements. So I want to talk about two more items before we kind of sign off for the day. So the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is cost pool setup. So this is where indirect rates are set up. So I noticed earlier we had about 40% of the people were GCS users. So the first thing to mention is that the indirect rate setup is as simple or as complex as your business, and there is no limit in terms of the number of pools. So in my demo system, I've got a fringe, overhead, company site, client site, and G&A, but you could have multiple fringe pools, multiple overhead pools, G&A pools, subcontract material handling, facilities pools, whatever it might be. The only requirement is the sequencing needs to be done in a way that any service center or any intermediate pool would need to be in a sequence above the final pool those costs are used in. So in this example, my fringe got calculated in step 1, and a portion is going to go into my other 3 pools, so it needs to be a sequence above these other pools. Then for each pool, you identify how that rate gets calculated. So what are my accounts that I'm accumulating as my pool, what departments, and then in terms of my base, similar idea. So my pool is my overhead accounts for client site departments. My base is my direct labor with fringe applied to the actual for client site departments. So that's how the ratio gets identified for the calculation. Then the allocation tells me once those costs are accumulated, what happens to them. So they're going out to projects at both an actual rate and a provisional rate, and that allocation, when we run it, it's going to post to the project and to the general ledger. And then how the system knows how the provisional rate is going to get allocated is it's going to take my actual base, multiply it by my provisional rate. And you can see that this is also date sensitive. That's how the provisional is going to get processed. Then once you have the final rate, if you have cost type invoices, the system will actually calculate, your variance invoice once you put your final rate in there. So if I over or under bill the government, it would actually calculate it for me. So then each month, the accounting department is going to run your allocate cost function for the period. If you use final rate or not, you could choose that. And even this function can also be scheduled. So I could kick this off when I go home, maybe because I don't want to sit at my machine. And this typically is only going to take a few minutes to run, but maybe I'm getting ready to run out of the office and I want to run this and I don't want to sit at my machine and do it. I can actually schedule it, and when I schedule it, it actually runs in the server, so I don't even need to be logged in for this thing to process. And then what's going to happen is when those process, I'll just look at from the GL side, is that it's going to make entries into the general ledger. So let's go into the general ledger, and it's also going to make entries into the project ledger. So if I go to the general ledger, and I'll go down into my allocation accounts, and they'll start at 9610. So we'll just look at our chart of accounts for just our 9610 and down accounts. You see that each pool has 4 accounts set up for allocations. It's got 2 that are going to be actual, so it's my actual and the offset to that, so it nets to 0 because my overhead costs were above, and then my provisional. And you can see that there's a significant variance between actual and provisional in my demo system, and I can see that my actual was $37,000 of overhead, but based on whatever our base was, in this case probably direct labor, it should have only been $6,000. So that we had too much overhead costs for the period. I can see the allocation itself, what was my base times my rate, what job and task did it go to, and what the amount was. So I'll see all the details of the transaction. And also I can set filters here. If I want to see what were the allocations to a certain job, I can set a filter on that job, and now you see that the allocations to 1002 is just 1,300 for fringe, 1,900 for my overhead for that job. So when I drill into this, it's going to show me just the transactions for that job. So those allocations really powerful, easy to do your analysis both on provisional rates or actual rates. And then and I apologize for our technical challenges, but I want to close it out with just one quick thing on invoice generation. So you run the process to generate invoices. It creates what we call invoice proposals that you can send off for approval. So there's a whole approval function. You can reprint these things at any time and print them in different ways. So I can email them out of the system like I mentioned earlier. I can print them in different scenarios in terms of how I want that invoice to display, and I can save that display. So I think I might have printed this one earlier, but when I preview it, I can decide how I want to lay that invoice out, and this is just one of the standard invoice options. Again, export it to PDF, Word, or Excel. And then if I needed to print it on one of the government forms, I could print it on my SF 1034, 1035, so that standard form, or also the DD 250. So these are embedded into the system, so I could print them off right out of the application. Damon, I guess that's a quick preview, and we lost a little bit of time, but I want to make sure that we end on time. And I noticed that there was a few other questions that came in, so we'll take the last 60 seconds and kind of cover some of these questions. And okay, there's a question that talks about explain the difference between Dynamics SL and NAV. That one, there are 2 different applications. Obviously, both from Microsoft. I think that the thing that I've seen is that NAV has probably some more in-depth features related to the interface. So you can access it from not only the browser option but the tablet phone option, and there's some different capabilities regarding that. There's a question about how is funding assigned to CLINs, and then what that was is in that work breakdown structure you can map your funding to CLINs or ACRINs, and there's a handful of other questions, and I know that
we've hit the 1 o'clock mark.
So what we'll do is, for folks that had other questions, we'll go ahead and we'll follow up with you independently to answer the questions. Apologize for the technical challenges we had today, but we appreciate your patience and sticking with us, and hopefully you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, and happy holidays. And hope you ever from everyone too. Take care.